can be hard like you got a winning hand till you dealt the wrong card, it ain't fair. You're not alone. You're down and out and you're high and dry in the darkest valley or the coldest night, you'll find you're not alone. With a song bubbling in your heart, where a story's gonna give you a brand new start. You don't have to travel this big bad world all on your own, cause it's better when we do it together. All mixed up and upside down, feels like there's no one else around, that ain't right. You're not alone, no, no. When it all goes south and life gets tough and you've been knocked down and the weeds are rough, you just fight, fight, fight. You're not alone. With this song bubbling in your soul, where a story's gonna make you whole. You don't have to travel this big bad world all on your own, cause it's better when we do it together. Guess what, guys? It's a surprise Polaha Chautauqua pop-up on a Monday afternoon. You know, Mondays are never fun because it's the beginning of a week. You've got the Sabbath blues on Sunday, and then you've got Monday, and you're like, oh my gosh. And we're so close to Christmas vacation. I don't know about you guys, but if you got kids, it's like everything is just crawling, grinding to this crushing halt, just waiting for vacation to begin. And, you know, if you're a working person and you've got a vacation coming up, then you just like, everything's like, I gotta get there. If you watched live yesterday, you'll know that I spent an hour talking to two good friends of mine. And then right about 7 minutes before the end of the hour, something happened, and the show went away, it disappeared. And I lost my entire interview with a gentleman named Gezim Gashi. Now, Gezim Gashi has written a book, and we talked about this book yesterday, but it's called Unlocked, The Power of You by Gezim Gashi. And I read this book, and I was totally blown away by its theme and its purpose. Because the whole thing is about story. It's about narrative. It's about what we say about ourselves. And it's funny, I did this thing called the Aspire Circle. I have an acting class. And I have this theory that every single word that comes out of our mouths shapes our narrative. Everything we say. Man, today's beautiful. I love today. You're a happy person, you're appreciative, you're grateful, you're observant, you're looking around. Man, I don't like this. It starts to tell people what you don't like. It starts to tell people what you like and what we want and what we don't want. And then when we talk about who we were and the quantification things, where we went to college, where we grew up, what our parents did as little kids, we're like, well, my dad can beat up your dad. All of this stuff shapes our narrative, right? And the author of the book has an unbelievable life story. And his mother blessed him. She spoke life into him at 10 years old, and she shaped a narrative that gave Gezim superpowers. He literally saw the world as his oyster to do with what he knows he was called to do, which was really to be a mentor and to shape singers and songwriters in the music industry. He knew it was going to be music. He knew it was going to be something where he was going to then return that and speak life into performers and sort of redirect the music industry. And what's crazy is I don't know how old Gezim is, but in his very young, short life, he's already accomplished unbelievable things. He is an Albanian refugee. He grew up in Sweden, but he was born in Kosovo. And when he was born, there was a genocide. They were wiping out all the Albanians. And his mother was told by a nurse, moments after he was born, that they would inject him with a lethal dose of something and that he would die. She believed this nurse, and she had her mother call her husband and her brother, who showed up at the hospital, and her brother, his uncle, and his father waited downstairs outside, 2 stories below, and his mother dropped him down. His father caught him, and he's here today to talk about a book that he wrote. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring on the author, the man himself, Gezim. Hey, brother.
Hello, brother. Can you see
All
me?
right, we're gonna
Everything fine?
we're
Okay,
gonna
nice.
try this again.
Yes, thanks for having me again. Yesterday was so nice. It was just such a great time. I'm glad we can do this again.
Good. And I know that so many people from Chautauqua have already reached out to you. I know that
Yes.
about 10 or 15 people bought a book yesterday in the hour that we were watching.
Yeah,
And
which was
so, you know, that's what we're aiming to do is to get some books sold, but not just to sell
yeah,
books. I really believe in the message that you've put in these pages. There are so many encouraging reminders in this book.
yeah,
When you live a life and you believe you are called to something, you have to keep reminding yourself what you were called to do. And
100%.
it's easy to be beaten down by life and to forget your story. Um, so go ahead. I'm gonna let you roll a
Yeah.
little bit. What would you like to say
No,
about it?
so I mean, first of all, you did explain the book really well because yes, I am a former refugee from Kosovo. We came to Sweden when I was only 1 year old, and then I grew up in Sweden. I share a lot of how I mean, Sweden for me was so nice. It was a great, great time, great country and everything. But I did also share a lot of moments of how I felt I, as a refugee, did not belong in Sweden and how that affected me, and also how that prepared me to come to the United States. And in this book, I mean, as I wrote this book, I quickly understood that, especially when I was 10 years old, Chris, as you said, my mom told me about this story that happened to me in Kosovo.
Right.
When she said that, everything just changed. And I was like, I mean, I will do something because I remember I was 10 years old and I just heard that story and I remember my mom obviously cried the first time she told me that story. And I think it was just that whole moment. And I, and it's crazy because I did not share this yesterday, but it was actually right before the first time going back to Kosovo. So this
Oh,
was the first time going back after 10 years.
wow.
So I
Yeah.
was like, before we
Yeah.
go back, because I did feel everyone hugged me a little bit more when I got back.
Right. You're like,
I mean,
finally,
I did
our love.
understand when and I mean why and all of that, but I mean, so yeah, so I do believe that the stories that we are told do shape us to the people that we become. And in this book, I do share that a lot of people are not maybe lucky or don't have that fortune to have someone to tell them their stories. So sometimes I think people can kind of almost tell us what we should do or who we should be. So in this book, because there's assignments and questions and everything, I hope I can at least guide you a little bit closer so you can shape your own story and just
Yeah.
find who you are. And then once this chapter is done, I want you to just go out there and just embrace, you know, how your story started.
Well, and one of the things, like it is true. You set up a lot of assignments. So the idea would be you'd get the book, you'd get a journal, like a companion journal.
Yes.
You go to Barnes and Nobles or wherever, buy a journal, and you give us homework assignments. You talk about writing down a timeline in your life when you were
Yeah.
born. You know, when you now to
Yes.
now, number the timeline, and then to put on that timeline specific wins in your life, victories, things that defined you, things that made you who you are today. And then I think also things that may be stumbling blocks or maybe moments that you're like, okay, I need to work on this, right? I know this happened to me.
100%.
I got to grow from that. I'm a huge believer in story. Anybody
Yes.
who's watched me over the last year and a half on the Chautauqua knows that I believe fundamentally that we are the product of the stories that we tell. I'm a storyteller. I do that for a living in film. I started writing with
Yeah.
Andy Gomez. We write books now. I write books now to tell stories. In my song, I sing where a story can give you a brand new start, where a story can make you whole. Um, so this idea is deeply, deeply important and valuable to me. And the way that you articulated it in your book is nothing shy of brilliant. I'm serious.
I
You
appreciate
you
that.
articulated things in this that are really beautiful. And if I can, do you mind if I read something
Oh,
from it?
100%.
Okay.
You're doing the audiobook.
I love yesterday in the live show. I made a joke at the end of it. I was like, "Hey, Gezim, if you want an audiobook, I know an actor. And you were so busy looking at notes. You were like, you didn't hear it. I don't know if you heard that, but you will in the playback. And then, of course, the playback
that was so good.
Died. So I'm going to read this real quick. This is from chapter 2. It's called The Power of You. So think for a moment about how many of your ancestors had to survive long enough to have a child for you to be here. All of them. You come from a long line of people who survived enormous predators, wars, famines, and oppression long enough to have a child. Amazing. Then, after all those unlikely survivals, your parents had to connect to have you. Out of more than 7 billion other people in the world, they had to find each other. Think about that incredible odds of one sperm cell reaching one egg to make you the person you are, and not your sister or your brother. The chances of you being born are astronomically small. Beyond the absolute miracle that is your existence, your combination of DNA and environmental influences is totally unique. You have a blend of talents that exists in only one being in the whole wide world, you. There is something that only you are ideally suited to do. But what is it? How do you find it? So you frame the book with those two questions. What is your purpose? How do you find it? And then through this very methodical system that you created in this book, you're allowing the reader to go through and journal and sort of go on a journey of self-discovery to craft a narrative that then emboldens them to live their very best life. It's really kind of amazing.
Exactly. No, I appreciate it. I mean, Chris, I was 21 the first time I came to the US, and it did not. It was just not what I expected at all. Los Angeles. Came here for 3 weeks, left immediately. Came back the second time, felt even worse, and thought, "Now this is not me." And then the third time, I started to work in music education in Sweden, and then that led me back to the US. But one thing that I've always believed in, and I'm glad it worked out, is that I do believe that when you have a purpose, that should also be the destination. Because a lot of people choose cities or a certain lifestyle or whatever that is to let them, for example, a lot of people move to Los Angeles and they think they have to be here.
Right.
I mean, I see even with you, when you have to record a movie, sometimes you're here, sometimes you go somewhere else. But for you, exactly. But also your purpose is to express your art and your craft and everything. So whatever that takes you, you'll go. And the same thing with me. But I do meet a lot of people, and more than anyone can imagine, of people who have this idea that, no, I came to LA, or I have to do this, or I have to be famous, I have to be this, I have to do this. And I'm like, but wait, are you fulfilling your purpose? Maybe, you came to LA for a little bit, and now maybe you should go back to whatever you came from and then come back. Or it's just, but that's the, I mean, right.
I would say on page 61, you said, when I arrived, okay, so you were a young kid, you're 21 years old.
21,
you saved
I'm 31
up money.
now.
Yeah, you saved up money to come to Los Angeles. And I know, I'm a kid from Reno, Nevada. And when you go to New York City, or you go to Los Angeles, there's a mental attitude of like, I'm going to the city that never sleeps, to be the king of the hill, top of the heap, number one, like you want to go to slay the city that you're going to, and you don't want to leave, because when you leave it, it's almost like you're conceding defeat. You're almost saying like,
exactly,
I couldn't do it, so I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
And I remember when I moved to LA, I didn't want to move there until I was invited by the industry. Like I wanted a job.
Makes sense.
To be brought out to LA. You said the school and the city were both marketed as a place where dreams come true. And that's where I thought I was going. But when I arrived, I realized that LA is not a pretty place. And there was a lot of suffering there. And that's true, man. It's like,
it is.
I think one of the cool things about your book is how you highlight both the pros and the cons of life. Like you have a chapter, and you wrote so beautifully about this, where your priority is your family, your mom, your dad, your brother, and 100%. Your cousins, your family. And you were saying how if your family, like you had a choice to go to the Grammys or to spend time with your family. And the way you wrote this one paragraph was like, if all is well with my family, they're going to want what's best for me. They're going to want me to go to the Grammys, and they're going to want me to have this awesome experience. And I would go to the
Exactly.
Grammys. But if there was a need, if someone needed me at home, I don't need to go to the Grammys. I need to be
Yeah.
home. And so prioritizing success. You also talked about something about people. I think a lot of people, I'm in this
Yeah.
position. People meet celebrities and they almost
Yes.
want like magic to rub off on them, or a certain energy to rub off on them, or
It's
stardust to
yeah,
somehow infect them so that they can then become stars.
exactly.
And you write this, there's a chapter, it's not who you know, it's really how you know
I
them.
know.
And
100%.
you talk a lot about relationship, and you talk a lot about
Yeah.
authenticity. Do you want to speak into that?
Yes. I mean, I just wanted to add exactly what you were saying, Chris, is that can you believe that a place, I mean, let's be honest, LA is probably one of the most miserable places this is just my experience. I have just it's just people who are there for fame, for money, for in very just doesn't align with who I am, what I believe in, and everything. But it's crazy that the power of authenticity and the power of purpose can still connect people, like how you and I have connected. And I found Mary Kay and Jim, who I consider discovered me in Sweden, and they are here in LA. I have so many friends here, and so there's still people like us here. But obviously, LA, it's just this. It takes time to kind of like go through that. But for me, when I am glad that I chose to be the person I chose to be, and then I still got to meet the people that I wanted to always meet here in LA. So yes, LA has that kind of really bad introduction for anyone. But if you just stay true to why you came, your purpose, and also the how you know people, I do think it's going to turn around. For me, it took 3 times coming back and forth. And I'm sure a lot of people come here once and they move back and they move on with their life. But for me, as I said, my purpose have just guided me to where I always thought I should go. But yeah, the authenticity, man, is just if we. I mean, even with so many businesses for me have been I meet them, chat with them. Maybe it's not the right time to create something, but because we built that beautiful relationship, it always kind of come back somehow. I do something for them, they do something for me, and then it's just this trust, and then after a while you can do something. So it's and another thing that I also really wanted to have in the book, because as I said yesterday, this book is a book that I really wish could have kind of existed before I
Right.
came to the US, because
For
I have
you.
so many
Yeah.
questions. I had so many
Yeah.
questions. I had questions, I have things, and I've always been the kind of person that when I meet someone, I ask questions. I haven't really asked anyone for favors to like, can you do this for me? I've always been curious on how people have had success. And then for me, when I came to LA, I quickly understood that, okay, life is not a ladder, because even I grew up in south of Sweden. You think of this idea, you have to come to Los Angeles, you are here, you're gonna make it. But then when I came, I was like, but wait, this is not a ladder. This is not like, here's someone more successful, I need them, or they need me, or because
Right.
that's kind of how the success and things have been built, and for us to believe in. So for me, when I kind of just said, hey, let me just stay true who I am, and I'm gonna attract the people that should be in my life. The people that should not be in my life, I'm not gonna attract them, and it's fine. And exactly, and then through that, I mean, the people that I work with today and that have the most success are the people that I chose to look around, not to look higher or down or left
Yeah.
or right. I just said, hey, you know, let me just be very purposeful, and let's see what that takes me.
Do you know the minute my career changed for the better and really took
Yeah,
off was the moment I stopped competing with my peers?
exactly.
Like I would look at other guys around my same level, and I was like fiercely competitive, and realized that uh, there is no formula, there is
Yeah,
no chain of command, there is no ladder to climb. You have to make your own. when I think about every single person I admire,
Yeah.
yes, relationships help them get through doors. They had to work with people. They had to get hired by people. And so, yes, we're dependent on the relationships in our life. Um, but really, it's like they just created their own, they just built their own seat to sit at the table. Like this table, this
100%.
infinitely wide. And I look at like Quincy, you mentioned Quincy Jones, and I know his story. Here's a guy who just built his own seat.
Yeah.
And, time and time
Exactly.
again, like this whole concept of the Chautauqua, like I was like, I'm just going to build, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of like just being the one, just auditioning and hoping I get a job. Like I'm just going
Yeah.
to start doing what I want to do. And that authenticity has reaped countless rewards. And this is like not even a thing yet. This isn't what it is. But um, yeah, your
But if
book is like an amazing
yeah.
reminder of that. You have this quote from Goethe. Um, you say Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. It's almost become cliche,
Yeah.
but you say that they became true in my life. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. The boldness to just do it, like to just begin,
100%.
right?
100%.
And you did that. You were a kid. I remember the story. A reporter came to your small town,
Yeah.
and you made a yes. There's this conversation of yeses and nos in your life, and you made a yes
100%.
happen for yourself. And you didn't really
Yeah.
give her an option to interview you, but it turned into a big win for you, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I remember I was 14. I was at home, and we were watching TV4, which is a big channel in Sweden. And then they said, "Hey, we're looking for local stories." And I saw the phone number. I called the reporter, and I was 14, and I said, "Hey, my name is Gezim, and I'm Albanian refugee in Sweden, and I think I'm gonna make it." I was like, I've always been a big dreamer, so I said, "I think I'm gonna do something big in life, and would you want to come and interview me?" And they said, "How old are you?" I said I was like 14, but yeah, but just come, and this is where I am. And they just kind of somehow they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll be there on Thursday. Are you not in school?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm in school." And I went to school. Then I had this teacher who I actually did not share this in the book. I did ask the teacher. The teacher was like, just not so, but just not the greatest teacher. So she was just like, "No, you're gonna stay here. I don't care about TV or anything." And because I was very honest with the opportunity. And then
Right.
after a while, I was like, "I actually need to go to the restroom." I went to the restroom. I ran home, and the TV came, and my mom was like, "Why are you doing home?" And I said, "Hey, this is what's happening. Make coffee, and let's go." And my mom looked at me, and she was like, "You're a little bit crazy, but you're gonna be fine." And then since then, it's just always been this trust from my parents. But yeah, I did that interview and just shared that. I mean, it's crazy, Chris, because I look back at that interview. Even then, I talked about what I'm talking about now.
Isn't it wild? Yeah.
And I was 14.
Yeah.
So, but I think for me, when you're 14, you also, I kind of always, I mean, I've always known what I wanted to do, but when you're 14, this is before social media, and you think there's ideas and stuff, and that needs to happen. So I remember being 14, being on the TV show, and then obviously it was aired, so people would start recognizing me. But even that, I remember I was like, okay, this is not fulfilling anything. Like, oh, nice that someone is like, "Oh, were you on TV?" But for me, I realized when I started to work in education, and when I saw students especially thrive,
Right.
that's when I was like, "Oh, wait, I found what I'm gonna do." I mean, and since then, it's just been insane
Well, you
working
have
with students.
I'm quoting you now in your own book.
Yes.
You
Okay,
wrote
let's go.
the knowledge that our why is about how we serve others is a superpower.
Yep.
So the knowledge
I
that
believe.
our why, like why are we doing what we're doing, and it's to serve
Yeah.
others, and that becomes our superpower.
Yeah.
And I think when you start living for other people, when you start living outwardly
Yes.
versus inwardly, because really what your book is about, it's a twofold book. It's like
Yeah.
craft an amazing story about yourself so that as you move through this terrifying world that is designed to kill you, you will have the strength and the
Yeah.
boldness and the power from within to push forward, right? So it's an
Yeah.
amazing book about identity, but then you couple
Yeah.
identity with this call towards service.
Yeah.
Uh, where's that
But
quote
also,
from?
can I just add something, Chris, as well? I mean,
Yeah,
now we're talking. Isn't it crazy how I came here once, I went back. I came second time, I went back. And then third time, why didn't I leave? I know why I didn't leave, especially now when I wrote this book. I didn't leave the third time, and I'm still here since I came here the third time, because I'm not here for myself anymore.
right,
You know, I
right. Yeah,
came here to
you're
try out that dream. Second time, same thing. But third time, I'm here for the students. Do I have
right.
days where I miss my family when I go home? 100%. But then I remind myself that, hey, you are here to be that person that no one could really be for you in education when you're in high school. So then I think about that, and I get to be that person for these people, then it's just worth it.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's why I
huge.
never left.
I'm going to read another thing from your book. It says, we're all called. If you're breathing, you have a contribution to make to our human community. The real work of your life is to figure out your function, your part in the whole, as soon as possible, and then get about the business of fulfilling it only as you can. Which goes back to your original purpose and story of saying
Yeah.
how we are a miracle and how we are this total accident. Like I think about my mom and my dad, all the steps that it took for them to meet. They were both married before they met each other. My
Yeah.
dad had 3 kids. He was from Pennsylvania. She was from Reno, Nevada. And the fact that they met, and the reason that he ended up in Reno is because he went to the Air Force, was sent to Germany, played
Yeah.
football, was really amazing at it for the Army. So he was in the Air
Yeah.
Force playing football for the Army, and the coach of the Army football team said, I know a coach in Reno, Nevada, you want a scholarship. That's the only reason why he went out there. And like you, went out there, left, and then went back, and his whole life began. Like, and it's just interesting to me, and this book, your book, is a great reminder of sort of how miraculous and special life is, and to trust it and to not sort of force,
Yeah.
like if you have this goal, if you want to be famous, or if you want to be successful, or if you want to be, to wait and not rush the end result, but just enjoy the process as you
Yeah.
get there and let life, bring you gifts. Um, I
But
also want to
also
talk.
another thing, yeah, I just want to
Yeah,
say that, yeah, I mean, one thing, that if you haven't figured out your purpose and why you want to do it, I would almost tell you to step back a little bit and then just figure that, have that one time with yourself. And then once you really know what makes you excited and what makes you just passionate about not even calling it work anymore, then I would start saying you're already. And I, I mean that, because for me, I did that so many times, but because of social media now, it's so easy to get access to different things. You actually don't have to go to LA 2, 3, 4 times, because now I could probably just talk to a few students at that school and ask for opinions. But because I didn't have any access, I had to come here and see things and try out things.
right.
Uh, but yeah, but that was still my journey. So I'm glad that obviously now I can be here and that I have this book, and it's just been, I mean, you wrote a book. It's just it's a process. It takes
It's a
time. And
Herculean task, man. It takes so much energy and effort and concentration to just, you have to sit down and you have to,
yeah,
and it's no small feat to have an idea and then to sit down and execute it and to have people believe in it, to edit it. You've got Jasmine Welsh, who designed the cover,
yes,
which I'll show you again. And she did a really
yeah,
beautiful job. It's
yeah, very happy with
unlocks
it.
the power view. And I love this little man right here, this person looking up at the stars. And the thing about humanity, the thing I've been
Yeah,
saying since high school, is that we, and forgive my French, people, forgive my French, but as humans, we can look down and play in our own shit and the mud and the muck, and we can live in that. Or we can choose to look up and see the stars, and we can chart a course for the future. We can dream, we can be inspired, we can inspire others, and the possibilities are endless. And that's the beauty of being a human being. We can
yeah,
we can be mired in the mud and the muck, or we can look up and see the heavens. And so your image at the cover evokes that, and your theme in the
Yeah.
book evokes that promise and that hope. Again, you've done a beautiful job, and I hope everybody buys a copy. I hope people tell their friends about it.
Oh, you're so nice. I mean, honestly, for me, when I wrote this book, again, yes, I happened to be the author, but I also wanted to make a book for the reader. And anyone who reads it, I really hope you can just at least practice a little bit of some of the things that I share. And I do feel, because of my journey, all the way from Kosovo to coming to Sweden and coming to the US, it has worked out for me. If I didn't have this story and didn't have gone through some things that I have, I mean, who would I be to share some of the stuff that I share? But because
Right.
I went through the things and it worked out for me, and I just always chose to the believe in character, believe in a purpose, believe in being nice, which is, if this is another thing, and I mean, I consider you, Chris, one of the nicest people that I know, is that once you are nice and people want to have around you, you'll be surprised how well you're going to do just by that. Because we think that just that most talented people, whatever that is, are going to be booked. I know people who are super talented. They're not getting booked because they are not nice to be
They're kind
around.
of hard to work with. Yeah.
They're just
Reputations
awful.
precede people pretty quick.
Exactly. And a lot of people, especially with the entertainment industry, and until today I don't understand it, is that we as human beings, we know how we should be, we know what life is, we know that, I mean, we're probably very good with having good people around us, but we do think almost this entertainment industry is this another world. And I'm like, no, the same way you are in your life, that should be in the entertainment industry. And if you're not like that in the entertainment industry, because I came here with a lot of friends, and a lot of people, I saw this shift. Once they got a job, I saw the body language changing, and like, we're making money, and I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing that? It's just, you know, it's just,
That's an amazing. We could have a whole hour conversation about self-perception and hierarchy. And when you walk onto a set in Hollywood, they rank you by number. It's like a call sheet, and if you're number one on the call sheet, it's because you're there. Mostly you're the lead, and you're there every day. And then number two is a lead, and number three is a lead, and then 4 and 5 and 6 are regulars, and then 7, 8, 9. Depending on how big the cast is. And I've worked on certain shows where the number one thinks they're number one. And it's this weird thing where you're like, it's just a number. It's totally like congratulations, you have an awesome job, but it doesn't make you a god or a goddess.
No.
And there's a weird thing in the industry where I think and that's where pride comes from, and that's where you really do start to think that you are godlike, and it changes your behavior in a way that's so strange. And you see it on every level of the entertainment industry, where people just become so consumed with their power that it makes them sort of behave a little differently and not so cool.
But another thing
chapter 11.
Chapter 11. But I just want to say
mission.
this, because I just wanted to say this as well, because I see some of the comments, and first of all, thank you so much for everyone. You guys have been so nice. But I think because of social media, one of the things that I mean, we both know social media can be very toxic. But one thing that I really love with social media is that we all can be storytellers. We can all say something that someone's going to read, and then most likely is going to change their day. And one thing that I saw some artists recently say that, oh, I am doing this and I have so much success, but I don't choose to be a role model. For me, first of all, I'm not saying I understand what they were trying to say with that. I think it's just their way of getting away with whatever they've done to kind of defend themselves.
Right.
But I do think everyone has a responsibility of what they're posting on social media, because if my kid followed an artist, if they are going to feed them with certain kind of content, my kid is most likely going to start acting in a certain way of what they think they should do. Absolutely. But for me, what I'm trying to say with that is that we just have to understand, first of all, that being a storyteller, you only, I mean, you have a huge responsibility, but you also have to, because this is the thing with me. When I wrote this book, I actually wanted to do it genuinely with my story. I said, if I cannot share my story, I don't want to do it. So, because we also believe in people, yes, who are storytellers, but when they're also genuine. Because the sad part, because for me, I was like, I mean, I'm just going to talk to you and to all the audience how I talk to my students. The sad part with now a storyteller is that there's PR people around the industry who's like, oh, female empowerment, or you should be this, push that. And then there's certain people who are just not that day to day, but they're
Right.
using these messages and storytelling together even more
Right.
following and more.
Almost like
So
glomming onto a trend. They're taking
yeah,
advantage
and
of a
like
social
yeah,
trend, like use the currency from it to promote themselves in a way that's not who they
I
are.
mean, I mean, even with the Kardashians, when they started off, they started off in a certain lifestyle, and now recently I see how their voice in their tone has changed. When they speak, they sound more authentic. It's just, I think everyone understands that we're thankfully going to a way where stories are gonna matter, your message and everything. But I think to anyone, at least whatever you want to say, just please let it come from your heart, because it's so easy to see all the stories and like, oh, they're talking about that, let me talk about that because that's the popular opinion or whatever that is. I think for me is that it's so easy to see through who actually want to say something and it's genuine. Because when I came to the US, I met a lot of people who told me, go to a voice coach, speak like an American. And I said, I'm actually a former refugee and I grew up in Sweden, and I think maybe I should just be me. Maybe my kids, probably, if I'm staying in the US, they're gonna speak American. But I was
Yeah.
like, this is me though. Like, why should I change my voice to
Right.
what? To get more people to buy my book, or I don't know what that could be.
Right.
But I
Well, you
just,
know what you're talking about is and you mentioned this twice. You talk about
yeah,
there's a new shift in how we in governance, how a lot of
yes,
women were leaders during the COVID, and how there was a different kind of how there's a different energy in the world, and how a lot of the
100%.
old ways of doing things, even in the music industry, you said there was an
Yeah,
old way of doing things, and I was smelling that there's this newness afoot. Like I'm smelling there's a new something happening, and I think that for a long, long time, um, we all felt like there was this continuum that we had to be a part of. There was a club that you had to get entry into,
yes,
and I think what we're seeing for the first time as a culture, as a society, as a generation, is like, no, I don't have to prescribe to your way of doing things. I don't have to sound like you. I don't have to look like you. I don't need to be like you in order to be accepted by you and to be on equal footing and to have a seat
exactly.
at the table. And I think that's what's happening right now is that the table, like I said earlier in this program, the table is vast and endless, and there are no finite number of seats. It is a matter
Yeah,
of bringing yourself to sit at the table. Frank Capra has this beautiful, beautiful speech. He was winning, I think, a lifetime award at the Oscars or something. And I wish I could play the recording for you. I will to you in person.
yeah,
I
yeah,
wish I could play it for the audience right now. But he says that it takes a moral courage to ask your fellow man to sit in the dark and watch something that you've made, a story that you're telling for 2 hours. It takes a certain moral courage to write a song and have people want to fall in love with it and to it and live their life. It takes a certain amount of moral courage to write a book and expect people to buy it and read it and get something out of it. It takes an incredible amount of moral courage to be a
yeah,
storyteller. And that also means that there's a demand on the kind of life that you live.
yeah. But
And
also, I mean, storytelling really works, Chris. Just yesterday, the way you described the book, the way I described my story, I happen to be the author. People automatically connect, and then they bought the book. And
Yeah.
it's just that easy. I tell that to students. I tell to anyone that I work with. If the power of just the authenticity and just showing up genuinely, but also, as I said, standing behind things that you can actually went through or you really are passionate about or something that makes you grow, people are just going to believe it and they're going to stand behind you. And for me, it's just nice. Every time I speak and every time I see a comment, I'm like, so nice. It really, I mean, for me, I know it works, but it's just nice when you connect with the same mindset people, and it's just like, oh,
Working, you cracked the Amazon's #1 list this week. You came out, your
yes,
book came out on Monday, and you're already an Amazon #1 bestseller. So it's
which is
working
crazy.
in a way that's amazing.
Yeah,
People are loving the message. Um, I just want to wrap up. I want to read the title of chapter 11. It says, "Your mission: be the kindest person in the room." And
yeah,
it's almost like a little bit addiction, because your last chapter in the book is chapter forever, and it's almost like a workbook for people to kind of start the work in. And
yeah,
basically, you're saying, like, dude, when you enter into an environment, make it about the other people. Be kind. And it really is. I've been talking about kingdom living, and you've just put you're looking at it from a different perspective in this book, but it really is
yeah,
about, like, how do we live fully in the moment and see each other, and really, and I mean, when I say love each other, I mean, like,
yeah,
when you love somebody, it doesn't have to be a physical romantic love. It doesn't have to be a parent to a child. By the
yeah,
way,
yeah,
you speak so lovingly of your parents in this book. I know they encourage you. I know they support you so
yeah.
much.
Love my
You're like, it's
parents,
a love letter to your parents. It's really a beautiful thing.
100%.
But
I mean,
it's a great
yeah,
reminder to the reader to just be kind, like, go into places and be fully present.
but also I think just be kind, but also, as you said, when you had the most success, you just stopped competing with anyone else. And I think for me, when I started to just understand that, wait, I have a story and this is my story and my story makes me, then I wanted to push that story out to the world, because I knew that my story is my story, your story is your story. And
Mhm.
then since then, everything has changed, because
Yeah.
I mean, and it's been really nice. I must say, I've been in the author world now for 1 week. The author community is so supportive. It's absolutely insane, because I do think, I mean, same thing with the book. Like, this is your book, this is my book. We're gonna post it. We're gonna share it. It's
Yeah.
not like the entertainment industry where
But it's like,
you
wow.
know, two
Yeah.
big artists, they're not gonna. Which is, we'll take that for another
It
live
was
stream.
weird,
But
man. I mean, art actors use their social media as currency, and to get people to
yeah,
post for the movie or to share or to like something, it's almost like they're
yeah,
like doing you a favor. And it's like, are you like, I'll bring you on let's talk. Like, who cares? Like,
yeah.
it's weird. It's like numbers and follower numbers and coveted, all this stuff where people are paying to get followers, and
Oh,
where you're just like, what's happening? Um, Brother, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let the viewers go. Is there anything I'm missing that you want to say about the book? I know you can get it on Amazon.com.
yes, .com. I think
And
there's
it's,
the only thing that I would say is that anyone who chooses to buy this book, please read it when you have time, and then I would love to talk to you and see how this book, first of all, spoke to you, and then if you want to stay in touch, just follow me. I've always been really good with answering and asking, just whatever that is. So just feel free to stay in touch, and I am excited to hear what you guys think about the book. And yeah, just but most importantly, whatever you are and whatever is happening to your life, because COVID-19 just been awful, and I'm sorry if you guys have lost loved ones, and I'm sorry if you've lost businesses, and I hope this call can inspire you, and I hope my book can inspire you to keep dreaming big, because I do share that in the book a lot, that as a dreamer, one of the most powerful thing about that is that it keeps us going forward. And I lost businesses, contracts during COVID-19, a lot of them in New York, but then I wanted to write a book. So through COVID-19, this book, came to life. So once again, just, I mean, that goes to everyone. Let's just see where 2022, first of all, hopefully we're praying to God that it's going to be, better, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be healthy for everyone. But yeah, let's just be nice, as I always say. Everyone who knows me, I'm always like, so nice, so nice. But let's just be nice, and let's figure out what we want to do, and just push that into the world, and with storytelling, the power of storytelling, crazy. It really can change so many things.
It really can. Yeah, I mean, it's how you shape things. If it's like if you tell yourself that you're sick and that you're no good, and you believe all the curses that people have spoken over your life, that you're just a worthless piece of dookie, and you start to take that on. If you tell yourself that story, you start to believe it, and you become sick, and you become frail, and you become those things. If you tell yourself that you're special, and that you're unique in the universe, and that you're one of a kind, and that you're meant for something special, and that you have superpowers, 100%. And you discover that those superpowers are to be kind to people, to love people, to serve people. And then how do you do that? Through what profession? And I love that it doesn't have to be a superstar. It doesn't have to be an actor. It can be a school teacher. It can be a mentor. It can be the person at the grocery store. I think about like the people who make my food. You are in charge of nourishing somebody, at a fast food restaurant. And we take for granted. We're like, hey, thanks. But like, if that's your job, if you're an Uber driver, you've got someone's life in your hands. Every single person, like the tower crane driver, there's responsibility. And each of us make up the communities that we live in. Each of us make up the society that we live in, which make up this world that we're living in. And it's either going to be a beautiful world, or it's going to be a really angry, hurtful, painful, hard world. And we can choose which kind of world we want to live in daily, individually. And that's the beauty of this story. And that's the beauty of this book that you wrote, bro. So I'm so grateful that you were able to come on again today, to take your time out of your busy. You're busy.
I'm glad we did this again. And
I was so upset yesterday when the thing crashed. I'm like, dang.
I know yesterday was, today too. Anytime just chatting about things that matters for me makes me excited. So I'm glad we did this. And someone asked something about the book, but just go to my profile and you should be able to find anything.
Yeah, so there's a link in your bio, right?
Yeah.
And it's the Gezim Gashi, Gezim Gashi, Amazon.com, Amazon.au in Australia, Amazon.uk in Europe, or England, sorry. I don't know about Europe, EU maybe.
Someone asked from Brazil. I think they can just get it through Amazon.com too.
Okay. Any other questions before we head out, guys?
Yeah. Any questions?
Now's your moment. This is the moment to ask a question. You remember Johnny Carson? This is the big moment here. We got questions from, it's like the worst Johnny Carson.
Oh, that was very good.
Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Jim.
But yeah, McMahon. Thank you, Chris. Honestly, so nice to always chat with you. And we're doing something next week that it's going to be exciting for your viewers to see, and then we'll share that.
Awesome.
Do you know what? The thing that I texted you.
No, I don't. Are we talking about the 15th, or are we talking about something else?
No. We're talking about the interview that you're doing for.
Oh, yeah. Can you talk about it?
Yeah. So I have something called an IGTV series, and it's hosted by the contributor at Forbes, Dr. Rod Berger, and he's interviewing Chris next week. So Chris is gonna share his story with Dr. Rod Berger. So it's gonna be very exciting. So I'm excited to see that. I'm on the side, so I'll be on the call, but it's gonna be just nice, you guys. You guys are gonna kill it. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be so nice.
I'm excited. I'm in New York next week, so can we maybe do it the week after? Would that be a problem?
Yeah, we can do it probably.
I'm in New York tomorrow, so I'll be in New York this week, I guess. So next week.
I love New York. I love New York. I cannot. Oh my God, New York is the best city.
I'm taking my wife. We're going on a date week. We're having a date week.
Really? So just you and? Julian?
Me and Julianne. We're
Oh,
just going and we're going to see
nice.
plays. And
That
then
is
at
so
the end of it
cool.
is Christmas Con. I'm going to go meet my fans at Christmas Con. I was there, and
You
that'll be a
have to
lot of fun.
document that. You have to
For
post
the
that so we
weekend
can
in
see
New
that.
Jersey, but the week in New York City.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll definitely post that so we can see. Want to see
all right,
that.
brother. Thank you so much for coming
Okay,
back,
brother. Thank you so
everybody.
much. And
The
thank you to everyone.
call to action is the book Unlock the Power of You by Gezim Gashi. It really is a wonderful book, and it was inspiring and encouraging, I mean, I was able to read a majority of it in a day.
Wow.
And it's I'm a fast reader, but it's 168 pages, so it's not something that's going to, you know, consume too much of your time, but you're going to be left with a really beautiful gift. And it's a book that you can keep going back to. And it's like a workbook. So it's something that you have practical.
100%.
It gives you some practical. And it's #1 on Amazon. So thousands and thousands and thousands of people can't be wrong.
No, thank you, Chris, once again. So much.
All right, brother.
And thank you to everyone
Hey,
who tuned in.
everybody, thank you guys for jumping on the Polaha Chautauqua. It's a little pop-up edition. And
it would be saved. Because
I love
just
that Laura just said, wow, I missed this live. Bummer. I hope it's saved. Guess what? It's going to be saved. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, Gezim.
Thank you, brother. Speak soon. Bye.